I used to wear a sign that looked like a dog. I got two teachers maybe, two teachers had a string around their neck. String around your neck. She's got a sign on the back that says it looks like a dog.
Make it 120 capacity?
Yeah, I started in one day, and I went to get out.
Yeah. So you got everybody scheduled to speak? Well, they just want to give everybody
What's that? You know what? This is a important day for me, but because of the off
You know what I mean?
so I don't have to wear it. I figure I don't mind the informality.
all about this.
And then I went to
721.
The schools are so close. Say around the globe, Spring Valley. How come they never build like one big nice school? One big school, better security, better learners. Even in Orange County, where I grew up, I graduated from
Good evening, everyone. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, all. Thank you for coming for the meeting this evening, February 22nd, 2018. The easy stuff. We had two issues at the last meeting. There was an issue with regard to some dumping of salt at Children's Park. The police were put on notice to increase their patrols, to keep an eye on things down there. To date, I haven't heard anything. That's a first. To date, we haven't heard anything basically saying that there's been more presence of salt down there. So my hope is that by having the police down there, we have cracked the code on that issue. In addition, we were apprised of speeding on Scotland Road. Again, the police were advised, and there too, that they would be keeping an eye out and doing some additional surveillance. Okay. I'm going to dispense with some of my other things as far as things that I've been doing, my Sundays with the mayor and what have you. I know we have a large group here, and I understand why you're here. And before we get into it, I have to make an observation, and some of you will probably get even more mad at me, and some will probably understand. We are a village of a little under 8,400 people. And as a board, we do what the law guides us to do and to address the issues of all of the village residents. What disturbs the apple cart, so to speak, these meetings are few and far between, and it's usually because there are issues. And that's understandable, because you know what? Sometimes there are issues. But folks, You need to make sure that when you're coming out for an issue, you've got the facts, and all of the facts, before you let rumors in the air and innuendo overtake rationality and sanity. Now, for the past couple of months, every day of my day is dealing with rumors and innuendo. You may... Thank you. I've actually got the microphone right now, but I appreciate you reinforcing what my job is. So, I understand that that's part of my duties here as the mayor, to deal with what's out there. But I'm going to tell you something. I heard a very, very, very disturbing quote from an individual who I can trust, I believe, and it came from our neighbors on the other side in Bergen County. And it came as a result of this whole Eru issue that was out there. And as I'm sure you're all aware now, all of the 3 municipalities that made noise all settled and were able to come to terms with the fact that religious freedom is religious freedom. The attorneys made a little bit of money on the deal, but after all was said and done, what was a result of a few people who pressed the panic button wrongfully caused these 3 municipalities to spend money which could have been better spent elsewhere. Had the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey come down on one of them and had to set them straight. Okay? Now, and what came out of one of those meetings, which was very disturbing, was, we don't want to get to be like Chestnut Ridge. Yeah, you're shaking your head. That's good. That's not good. We are a village of 8,300 diverse people. Religious, sexual orientation, ethnic backgrounds. We are all here to live together. Now, if you are unhappy, you are welcome to be here. The Constitution of the United States gives you license to voice your dissatisfaction. But I will tell you this. As long as I am sitting in this chair, this board, this village, will not capitulate to religious animus, will not capitulate to religious bigotry. I am not saying that you are all here under that umbrella. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that you are welcome to voice your opinion, but you are also, your obligation is to figure out and find out what are the facts, and do not let rumor and innuendo affect what you are thinking. And unfortunately, that is happening. As a matter of fact, there are individuals going around this village, holding themselves out as, we're from the village, going on construction sites and talking to contractors to say, don't do this, don't do that. It's not from the village. It is not from the building department. Okay? Now, that behavior is going to stop. The Ramapo police have been advised. You're committing a multitude of violations and crimes by holding yourself out to be a village representative. Okay? That's happening. That's happening. Now, our process here in the village has always been one of fairness, open door, and transparency. Whether you agree with some of the things that are done in the village, reasonable minds will differ. But this board, this village, at this point, will not capitulate to a mob mentality. It will not capitulate to people coming out who are voicing, who are throwing invectives, who are throwing disparaging comments to individuals in this village. Excuse me, you will have your opportunity to speak. Right now it's my opportunity to speak, and I'm setting the ground rules for how this is going to happen tonight. Because what we are not going to tolerate is we are not going to tolerate people bashing any ethnic or religious group. You are not going to speak in terms of individuals. If you want to speak, if you want to voice your dissatisfaction, as I said, the Constitution allows that. You have your right to free speech, but the right to free speech is not unlimited. It is not unlimited. And you have to make sure that you recognize the decorum and the respect of the meeting. As I said, you want to come up here, and if all 200 people want to say what a lousy job that I'm doing, or that we're doing here, and you're not happy, you're entitled to do that. You're entitled to do that. But this is what is going on, all right? I appreciate the fact that your bullet points try to remind everyone to be respectful and courteous. That is appreciated. Now, I will tell you this. I appreciate the fact that there's someone out there who feels as though that this board or I have the unilateral authority to change the FOIA law. I thank you for that compliment, but unfortunately I am not able to do that. The FOIA law is set by statute. So we are not changing any laws here. What is happening is this. Periodically, usually on an annual basis, we will reaffirm policy that this village follows. We adopt Robert's Rules of Order. We name our bank. We do a whole bunch of things on a yearly basis. The FOIL procedure is one that the village re-emphasizes on a periodic basis. So, we are not changing the FOIL law. What has happened, and I don't know how this got turned around, there have been instances where individuals, I shouldn't say that, design professionals, have been paid to develop a unique design, a unique architectural design or engineering design for a particular property owner. And that property owner paid a lot of money for the unique design. And that design professional has a proprietary right to that design. Now, there has not been an instance that I'm aware of that anyone has ever been denied the ability to look at a file, to look at a plan, anything of that sort. Apparently, a design professional was concerned that their designs are being copied and being used for personal or other commercial purposes. Namely, they're stealing their ideas. So, what this village is doing with that particular item is we are going to be forewarning those individuals looking to make a copy of those designs. And they are going to sign a disclosure that says that this design might be of a proprietary nature, which means it may be trademarked, it may be copyrighted, okay? And they are aware that if the design professional finds out that they have used this for private or commercial purposes, they will indemnify the village in suit, because the village is not going to defend a suit against that. And that's what that FOIL law is clarifying, okay? We're not preventing anyone from looking at a file. You're always welcome to look at a file, and I don't think there's anybody that's ever been denied at looking at a file. And it offends this village. It offends this village when there are accusations that we are trying to prevent people from seeing what's in files, because that has never, ever occurred. Ever. So, that's for protection of the design professional, which the trademark laws provide. All right? Now, so you're welcome. You want to look at a file? You want to make a copy of a plan? Go right ahead. Be aware. You're going to be signing an indemnification that you are acknowledging the fact that that may be proprietary information. Now, so I'm not restricting anybody's right to view government documents. Nobody. And nobody in this room can say that, in all honesty, ever, ever. Now, as far as houses of worship. Houses of worship is that there's a statutory provision for us to accommodate the establishment of houses of worship in residential zoning districts, both federal and state law. End of story. It is not enough for this village just to say, thou shalt be allowed a house of worship. The village must establish a process that will guide various houses of worship, regardless of their religious foundation, as to the procedure with regard to establishing a house of worship. And the whole purpose of the federal and the state law, not only do we need to have a code provision to permit, but we cannot have a process that is deemed to be onerous, arbitrary, or that in some way can appear to be in a way to prohibit that the house of worship, i.e. applying for what may be considered an unusual amount of variances or things of that nature. That is federal and state law. Again, I appreciate the fact that you think that this board is able to unilaterally change the law like that, but we cannot. So, what we are doing with this proposed regulation, this proposed change, is we are following the law. And in following the law, we will circulate it to the appropriate governmental agencies to look at it. We will circulate it to our planning board, and we will obtain comments. And you will have an opportunity to speak on that every matter that you may have a question on. We will have our planner here, and if there's any questions that we cannot handle or we cannot answer, the planner will be here to answer it. But that is the law. That is the process. We are not reinventing the wheel here. What we are doing is we are keeping up with the law, and we are recognizing the fact of the diversity in this village. And that's what we are doing. Now, the fact that you're considering this outrageous and un-American, I find very hard to believe. Because the last thing in this world is we are un-American. The last thing. And the fact that you are all here and you are all able to direct your ire at me or whoever you want to do that makes it very American. Because if we weren't, the options would not be very good. Okay? Now, so, in summary, everything and anything that we are doing here, law-wise, as far as any proposals that are being circulated, they're going to come back to us to revisit. If they have to be tweaked, they will be tweaked. But that's why we are doing what we are doing. Now, you can shake your head, you can voice your dissatisfaction. Again, the Constitution allows you to do that. But that's what we do, and when you comment on anything this evening, again, I would reiterate the fact that it should be respectful, it should be courteous, and it should be professional. Okay? Now, at this juncture, you know what we'll do is I think we'll, before I open up the floor for the public on the agenda items, I'd just like to approve the meeting minutes, all right, so that we could... Sure, no problem. At this point, I would just like to approve the meeting minutes, and then we'll go back to the open floor for the public discussion on the agenda.
I can't do December.
Okay, here in the back.
Oh, I haven't turned up the light.
I mean, in the real back, in the court.
Oh, okay. Then I got to get a little closer. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Mayor moved to approve the meeting minutes.
I can't do December.
Turn to a larger venue.
What are you able to do?
I wasn't here.
All right. So at this point,
I'll second.
all right, we have Trustee Miller moving on the minutes. Trustee Valentine seconding. Deputy Mayor Rock will abstain on December. Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There being none. Thank you. Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Liebelson. You have not been designated the hall monitor. Okay? Mr. Liebelson, you have not been designated the hall monitor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. At this juncture, we will open up the floor. January. We said both.
No, I'll move January.
Or did you already move by Trustee Miller?
But I can approve, I can
I was moving December.
4 to 0 in January, 3, 1 abstention in December.
Not December, January is,
4 to 0.
it's you and who else?
All of us.
Oh, no,
January was approved. Lawrence.
yeah, motion
No,
and
the same
second.
motion.
Okay,
Now, anyone wish to speak, one at a time, name and address for the record, and we would ask that you try not to ask the same questions. First one, name and address for the record.
What's the topic? We just want to make sure that we are following.
The agenda, there's an agenda.
There are two agendas as far as I
it's a good
understand, and
question.
those of us who are in the back could not hear you until.
There's one agenda.
One agenda.
There's one agenda. Any items on the one agenda that you have back there, that would be the public hearing on the parades, the community development block grant, the veterans tax.
Okay, I'm ready after that.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nancy Andre. I live at 1 Sergio Court.
Thank you, Ms. Andre, for coming out this evening.
Thank you for hearing me. I am here because I'm actually quite disappointed about things that are happening in the community, and I feel like we have to be here to voice our concerns because it's not being heard. December 24th, which is Christmas Eve, which may not be recognized by the entire community, but is the eve of a holiday for all of us. We were advised at the very last hour that there was a parade which would shut down my street. There was no consideration that it was Christmas Eve. No consideration that I, myself, could have guests that could not park on my block. I could not communicate to my guests because I was not notified until one day before. How was I notified? Someone actually had the nerve to open my mail and put a notice
You mean your
grant
mailbox? You mean
Yes.
in your mailbox?
Mailbox.
Yeah, not
Yes.
your mail, in your mailbox.
in my mailbox.
Okay.
It was not mailed.
I understand, but there's a difference between putting something in your mail and in your mailbox.
Okay, I
Yes,
think
it is illegal. You're absolutely right. And there's been
I believe
flyers.
the majority of the
Let's get
people
back to
in
the
the room understood what I was trying to say.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. I didn't.
The one person. So,
We're gonna keep the chatter in the back. I know it's very, we're not in elementary school. We're not in high school. All right.
Then why are you treating us like we are?
Because we got to set
You're
the ground
acting like a
rules.
tyrant here.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
no.
you are. Stop lecturing us.
I have
And a
to.
federal mailbox is a federal mailbox.
We're not here to talk about the federal mailbox.
Gee whiz, come on.
Miss Andre, go right ahead.
okay, I'll let you know why there's frustration in the room.
I
I've
understand.
been attending a couple of meetings. This is the first one where it seems like the people on the board are hostile.
No?
Jesus.
Only
I-
me.
Yes. Yes.
I'm the chair of the meeting.
You represent
I'm the
it.
chair of the meeting.
Okay,
Look
so
at me.
I've been attending a few because it's important for the people to talk about their concerns.
Understood.
And if this is what this platform is for, and the action or the reaction we're getting for speaking our mind is what you're giving us, there's a problem.
Well,
So let me just
you know what? I'll
finish.
apologize then. This is what I will do. I will apologize if it is coming across that I'm being.
I appreciate the
Okay.
apology. I'll just continue. So I appreciate that we've got people who celebrate a number of different religions. And I'll be honest, I went into a community, I was different, but when you respect other people's preferences, other people's interests, Christmas Eve, it may not be your celebration,
Oh, it is.
but there are people who could be coming to my home who have no opportunity to know that they can't access my property. And while,
Excuse me. Right, and that's why the law that's before us is addressing.
okay, so then I'll tell you a couple things that I'd like to ask. You should not block somebody's home. I don't care what the reason is. For me to come in and out of my home and to hope that you don't have something happening, and I don't care what day it is, but it was worse that it was Christmas Eve. But I will tell you, I don't care what day it is. I should have the ability to come in and out of my home and not ask for permission.
No argument.
I should not have somebody put something in my mailbox to tell me that I have a day notice to warn anybody who might want to come to my home what they need to do, where they should park, how to avoid children that might be around. Now, celebrate whatever you want to celebrate. Don't do it in front of my house. You know why? Because I don't do it in front. I respect other people's property. And when you're doing it on people's property, you say it's just on the street, it's not on the street. People are on people's lawns. Let's think about what we're authorizing here. People are on people's lawns. And I'll be honest, and you say just stick to the facts? I witness it. They're videotapes, right? It's not just on the street. I've seen people park next to my house and then cross my home to get to other homes because it's more convenient for them. Be considerate of your neighbors. Now, people don't realize when they see I'm frustrated, as a neighbor, I will tell you I'm frustrated, and they think they're the only one. You're not the only one. You're the only one who just did that one indiscretion. I am tired of begging. I am tired of asking. I pay taxes like everyone else. Just be considerate of everyone.
And that's what we're trying to do with the
Well,
law.
I believe that there are some concerns with the rules that you're passing.
We're not passing anything this evening. What we're doing is, it is out for us to discuss. And we will take into account the concerns that are being made to us this evening.
And I guess the other thing is, the only reason why I'm here to speak about it, because it happened on my block. I don't know if everyone else would have been aware. If we didn't have a member of our community who's making sure that the whole world is aware. But it happened to me, and it impacts me a lot. You need to recognize that voices are speaking. They're speaking loudly, and they're speaking often. And if there's a way to get people to understand, we are here as a community. You cannot be acting as one person and think that whatever you want to do can happen here. It just doesn't happen.
I agree. Thank you.
Jerry Liebelson, 31 Midway Road. All my remarks are prepared. I just want to first say I have nothing to do with that flyer that you see there in red. I am not affiliated with that. That one I did, but not the one you were raving about. Okay.
I was complimenting. I didn't rave on it.
Well, whatever. I'm not I attended the workshop, and I am here. So get your pen ready because I am here to talk about the parade law. Okay. Now,
I'm sorry, you're going to talk about
the parade law. Now, on July, and this is all I'm going to say, so just let me go, and then I've got the bullet points, all right? On July 2nd, 2017, without any advance notice to residents or even the police, a major access road in my neighborhood, Spring Hill Terrace, was blocked off by the Chaverim to hold a religious procession. It's called a Torah dedication. I'll just call it a religious procession. I assume you know who the Chaverim are. If you don't, I can fill you in. The Chaverim directed traffic off of busy state Route 45. There were dozens of minivans with families of many small children, in addition to a large parade vehicle with extremely loud music. Neighbors could not get in and out of their homes, and it was chaos. The police were finally summoned, and just 2 officers were available, but overwhelmed in dealing with the situation. The next morning, garbage was strewn all over the block, on either side of the street. Even after it was cleaned up, I still found soiled diapers here and there remaining. Nothing like this should ever happen in our neighborhoods. Since then, there have been 2 other religious processions of this nature that I know of, and there will be plenty more. So I'm pleased that you have finally drafted a formal law to address this. However, as it stands now, and I've read the text, the law you are presenting to us is seriously deficient in the following ways, which I ask you to please correct. Number 1, there must be direct advance notification by the village, not the parade applicant, to residents of the affected street. The law must specify the number of days in advance and the manner of notification, whether it's by mail or signs on telephone poles, but some neighborhoods don't have telephone poles, whatever. Just having public notices at Village Hall or on your website or in local papers by themselves is not acceptable. This is not only and not primarily about parades down Main Street. We are talking about our homes and our streets. We need to know a week before at least that the street's going to be blocked off. Okay, and there's going to be loud noise and zillions of kids and police and everything like that. Number 2, some maximum limit on the time duration of these events needs to be specified, or otherwise require neighborhood approval beyond a specified threshold. Number 3, set limits on the volume and type of music and other noise, perhaps dependent on the duration of the event. Number 4, define procedures for allowing paramedics and ambulances immediate access to a property on a blocked-off street during the event. Number 5, affirmed the required presence of adequate Ramapo police to be in control of the event for its entire duration. As to costs, that's something there's something mentioned in the text about Department of Public Works, so I seek clarification from you on this, but specifically I ask, who will pay for the cost of police involvement? And two, exactly how, by whom, and when will the street be cleaned up, and who will pay for this cleanup? I don't see any of that in the law. And so I ask you either to correct it, to add that, or to explain to me for the record why these things cannot be put in the law. Specifically, the first one, the advance notification.
I don't object to any of these bullet points that you had brought up. My reading and my interpretation of the law, other than perhaps the direct notice from the village as opposed to the host of the event, I believe we try to address. However, as laws are always revised and tweaked, there's never any harm in trying to clarify it a little bit better, and we will do that.
Yeah, just to point out, as the other person from Sergio Court, that last notification was done by the parade person, and it was just a piece of paper in their mailbox. So it can't be up to the parade applicant. That's why it has to be the village. We cannot, it's got to be within an advanced period of time. That's it.
And that's understandable, and just by way of experience, I had a similar event, and I got the notice in my mailbox a couple of days before.
Okay.
And,
well, that's better than a day before.
And I watched and then whatever, but I understand.
Okay, thank you. I just want you to consider those points. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next please. Name and address for the record.
It is dancing, it's like an obstacle course, but I've made it. Good evening, Hilda Koga, 20 Pine Knoll Court. I wanted to actually speak to the issue regarding the parade law, because I looked at a couple of the items and I think there should be some changes. I think that a notice to the village of 5 days in advance of an event is not sufficient. I think because if you're going to do...
Excuse me, you said notice to the village. What do you mean by that?
5 days, well, I'm looking here.
No, it's not the 5 days. You said notice to the village. What does that mean?
Advising the village or applying for the...
They need to apply soon. You think they should apply soon?
I don't think it's a sufficient amount of time, because if it's a parade, that doesn't give enough turnaround time to notify the residents of the community. Part two is that I believe that the only people that should be involved in maintaining law and order, if you will, during the course of the parade should be the Ramapo Police Department, and only the Ramapo Police Department. Prior experiences were not particularly good with regard to other individuals who said that they were deputized or sworn to, allowed to maintain order. I only want to see town of Ramapo Police Departments or their official auxiliary.
If I could address that, in particular, as a result of the Spring Hill Terrace weekend that there was a parade, I addressed that with Ramapo and Ramapo PD, and they have an understanding and a relationship with Haveram. So that's really on Ramapo whether they're going to put one of their people there or they're going to assign Haveram to do that. So that.
I didn't say it.
I'm letting you know. No need to go. I'm just letting you know that was addressed with Ramapo PD, and I cannot tell Ramapo PD how to staff. The whole idea is Ramapo PD will be made aware. They are supposed to be in on what's going to happen, the travel path, and things of that nature. In my particular instance, again, by me, I had Ramapo PD was escorting in addition to the Haveram being there. So I think it depends on the event, it depends on the extent of the event. But that's something that is part of the process when we speak with Ramapo. I rely on Ramapo to staff.
That's fine and dandy, as long as Ramapo oversees the individuals that are there, because no matter how you look back on that situation on Spring Hill, it was a debacle on a lot of different levels, and part of it was a control situation and how the situation was controlled. So that's really what I think.
And I will not argue with you on that.
And last but not least, I have to agree with notification of the residents of the community. my father was a mailman. You don't touch somebody's mailbox. You don't put anything in somebody's mailbox. It has to be done appropriately, and perhaps it should be the responsibility of the village, taking into mind that we have a lot of people who are not computer people. So we have to notify the residents of this community and put them on notice so that they make appropriate provisions to protect themselves or do something on a particular day.
And on that subject, what we need then as a village to assure that people are made aware, we need to make sure that if you are computer literate, you give us your email. And if you wanted to have a phone call, you need to make sure that we've got the right phone number for you, because we do not have access to everyone's emails. We do not have access to everyone's phones. So if you want to be sure to be included in any notice, you need to contact the village and you give us the notice of your choice. If you want to, it could be both, but give us the notice of your choice.
Sounds fine to me. It's like one of those reverse calls about what's going to be happening, and we'll all come to the party.
Correct.
Is it an opportunity to speak on other things, or are we just talking about the parade?
Actually, on the agenda, so if there's anything else on the agenda you need to speak on.
I had other things too. You can get it.
I have to finish because I don't think I can get back up here. I wanted to talk about the House of Worship matter, and say that while I appreciate what you've said tonight, and I appreciate the spirit in which you offer it, I look at that and I'm kind of concerned that were not other members of communities sitting at the table when this particular thing was drafted.
Oh yes, there's no question.
So that being said, when I look at this, and I want to say right off the bat that the idea that whenever, if this were to be adopted, that there would be a grandfather process allowing for however many of these houses of worship managed to develop before the approval, that's kind of a concern to me. The idea that people would be able to start signage is also a concern to me. I think, as a matter of course, I really just believe that it seems that it was not an inclusive process when this particular law or proposed resolution was drafted, and I have a problem with that.
Well, I don't. The inclusiveness really went along the lines of we have our mosque in the village, we have our couple of Christian communities in the village, and we have a number of our Jewish houses of worship. And what was trying to be done was we were trying to figure out a way to come up with a plan that applies to all religious practices and all religious denominations. Now, there was no exclusivity to the degree that they had the in on what was going on. What we tried to do actually was through the planner. The planner actually tried to look at other villages' ways of addressing it. In particular, the park in Wesley Hills, I believe, they're big on the. They had a template for us to follow with regard to the parking, for instance. So we didn't rely on a single resource. We had our planner come up with the plan, so to speak, and then we tried to get some feedback from who would be the end users in that as a practical thing, because I don't know. I don't know all my religions, so.
Well, but we have other churches. We have the Coptic Church.
Correct.
We have the Foster Church.
Right.
Would have been a great thing to invite some of those people who have already been through the process to sit at the table and give their input. That's not to say that they're not going to have that opportunity going
That's
forward.
correct.
But that was my suggestion.
And that's fine. And they will have an opportunity
Going forward.
and they will have an opportunity.
Okay. All right.
That door shouldn't be open, let people in and out.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me?
You shouldn't let people in and out that door.
I didn't realize. They should go around the other way.
You should not have access.
Okay, next, please. You're up. Thank you, Mr. Penny.
My name is Jose Pena, 7 Appledale Lane. On the parade thing, if the town of Orangetown can make the second largest parade in the country, I think we can make a parade. Maybe you'll do parade, say, from All Night Turnpike right here to Williams. It's a commercial lot, and it won't affect these homes. You know, on a Saturday or something. I'm just saying you can organize it better, and everybody will be happy.
Mr. Pena, I'm going to presume that there, like for instance, with a Torah parade, my understanding is that the Torah parade usually goes from from a house to another house. So if that house isn't located along that route, obviously. Now, what actually spurred this parade law was when the firemen had their big parade in the village. And they came to the village and they asked, you know what, we're gonna have this big parade, what do we need to do? And we said, oh, you know what, we don't have anything.
They were organized.
And that, they were, but at the same time, that's really what triggered this. But
This
thank
is
you.
a suggestion.
Thank you. Okay, next please. Your sidewalk's been plowed, it's been shoveled, right? So I've been seeing you over there. Okay, no. Maybe just for the record. Okay.
Joel Celestin, 46 Spring Hill Terrace.
Thank you, Mr. Slauson. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor and to the rest of the board, I appreciate what you said in the beginning about the diversity of the village, and definitely applaud your efforts to, certainly try to respect everyone. My question, I think, is a follow-up of what Hilda just mentioned. Can you just, before I do that,